Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's July 3rd. Today, we officially welcome the Dog Days. They start on this day, and they last for the next 40 days. We'll also learn about the landscape architect who invented the term landscape architecture. We celebrate the market gardener from Isleworth who exhibited the first large-scale cultivated strawberry at the Royal Horticultural Society on this day over 200 years ago. We also celebrate one of America's best-known florists, and we honor the life of the English poet William Henry Davies. He loved the natural world, especially birds and butterflies. And we grow that garden library today with a book about flowers, their history, culture, biology, and how they change our lives. And then we'll wrap things up with the story of a preeminent botanist and plant explorer who worked for the USDA. But first, let's catch up on some greetings from gardeners around the world and today's curated news. Today, we have a lot of birthday greetings to get to. First up is happy birthday to Grandma and Grandpa from Laura in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She writes that she learned to garden vegetables from her grandfather, and she learned to appreciate ornamentals from her grandmother. And then it's a happy birthday to Bernadette Thomas, who sent in a picture of herself standing next to her birthday present from last year, a twist and shout hydrangea. They're so beautiful. And then here's a belated happy birthday to Jake Ampey, who turned 50 in late June. And there are pictures of him planting his brand new plum tree. This is the first fruiting tree on their property, and he said tips would be greatly appreciated. Well, plum trees are a favorite of mine. They're a short-lived tree. They only live about 2 decades. You do need to watch out that you don't overwater your plum tree. And don't let them sit in a very wet spot in the garden because they can get fungal diseases. Like many fruiting trees, plum trees benefit from pruning. They need to be thinned so that they don't have branches that break off and snap off under the weight of all of the fruit. And with a new plum tree like yours, you're going to have to wait a little bit before you're going to see any fruit. It usually takes about 4 to 6 years to see any plums. And then finally, Candace Ball wrote in with a picture of her kids standing by her brand new raised bed garden. She writes, I am so grateful that my kids get to experience this life right now, growing food in their own garden and exploring the outdoors. So sweet. Now, if you'd like to participate in the Gardener Greetings segment, just send your garden pics, your stories, questions, birthday wishes, and so forth to Jennifer at thedailygardener.org. That's thedailygardener.org. And to listen to the show while you're at home, just ask Alexa or Google or any of your smart speakers to play the Daily Gardener podcast. It's just that easy. Here's today's curated news. First up is a post that was shared on housebeautiful.com. And the title was Save Water, How to Adopt a Water-Efficient Approach to Gardening. Such a great topic. You know, right now as I'm recording this, it's about 90 degrees in the shade and it's like 7 p.m. So we are definitely in the dog days of summer. And conserving water is something that all gardeners are concerned about. Now, I thought I'd give you a little shortcut and take you through the 5 tips that they outline in this article. First, they suggest installing a rain barrel. Rain barrels or water butts are perfect for collecting rainwater. And if you see that there's rain in your forecast, you're going to want to make sure to clean out your rain barrels so that you can collect the rain. And even if you don't have a rain barrel, you can use things like cans or bins or watering jugs. Anything that can collect rainwater. My neighbor up here in Wyoming does a fantastic job of this. He has huge bins, huge rain barrels, probably close to a dozen of them all over his property, and he uses them to water his garden. And he's very dedicated to this practice. The second tip is to switch to watering your plants in the morning. This is helpful for your plants that are trying to survive the heat of the day. They'll have some water to draw on, but it's also great for the overall water system. There's always more demand in the hottest time of the day. So using water early in the morning helps take a load off of the system. The third tip that they suggest is not to water your lawn. Lawns are tough. They can take the heat. And even if they go dormant or go brown, they can bounce back once it rains again. Tip number 4 is to use your watering can instead of your garden hose. Garden hoses use a ton of water. In fact, they share one staggering statistic. They say 1 hour's use of a garden hose is the equivalent to the average supply needed for a family of 4 for 2 days under normal circumstances. That's just 1 hour of using a garden hose. And if you use buckets or watering cans, you're definitely going to use less water. And then finally, tip number 5, train your plants to drink more slowly by giving them less. I started doing this a few summers ago. And the interesting thing that starts to happen is that your plants actually adapt and they learn your watering habits. If you water with abandon, your plants will expect that. But using less water actually encourages your plants to drink less. Now, if you'd like to see this post for yourself, read through all of these tips in more detail, all you have to do is the next time you're in the Facebook community for the show, just type in the word water in the search bar, and this post will pop up. Now, over at the blog, I wrote a post for today called Let the Dog Days Begin. Here it is. Despite what you may think, the dog days are just beginning. July 3rd always marks the beginning of the dog days. And although there's a case to be made that every day of 2020 has been a dog day, nonetheless, the official dog days truly start today. As with Lent, the dog days are a period of 40 days. The dog days are traditionally the hottest and most miserable days on the calendar weather-wise, unless you live in Minnesota. The dog days won't officially end until August 11th. Excuse me. Hey, Google, remind me to play The Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine as a wake-up song on August 11th. Now, in case you're wondering, there's actually a celestial rationale for the term dog days. During the dog days, the dog star Sirius is rising. So the dog days refer to the days that Sirius rules the sky. At this point, as my English major friends like to say, let the alliteration begin. So Sirius and the sun make the world a sweltering sauna and cause serious summertime suffering. Phew. And of course, you know what they say about the dog days. They're rough. In fact, as people, our bodies tend to shut down during the dog days. So if you thought you were a couch potato before the dog days, just wait. Why do you think they call them the lazy days of summer? So channel your inner Bruno Mars. Today I don't feel like doing anything. Permission granted. It's time to kick back and relax. Lemonade, beach towels, dishes in the sink, takeout, and probably more weeds in the garden. Now that likely got your attention. Yet, as the dog days roll in, we usually beat a hasty retreat out of the garden. But before you hang up your garden apron, let me make a little suggestion for you for your garden. Brighten it up with Hakanakloa All Gold. Every now and then, the plant gods smile on you with a clearance sale featuring something genuinely spectacular, like Japanese forest grass, or in this case, Hakanakloa All Gold. Last year, my local Lowe's was clearancing them for $3 a pop, and it was just what the plant doctor ordered to dress up the garden up here at the cabin. This year, they've come back and they were so glorious that I have to tell you, I would buy them again, even if they weren't on sale. I love it that much. In fact, I loved it immediately after planting it, and I love it now. And it's the kind of plant I tell people that you will love like a family member, more than yesterday and less than tomorrow. In 2009, my garden idol, Margaret Roach, tweeted, "Another plant I cannot garden without, Hakanakloa All Gold." And then she said, "Solid gold in the shade." Talk about a great plant for your shade garden. And you know what? She's right again. So thanks, Margaret. The Hakanakloa variety All Gold is sassy grass perfection. That's what I call it. It's sweet, it's mounding, it's graceful, it's tactile. So if you have kids in the garden, they will love touching this grass. It's bright and beautiful, thus the All Gold moniker. And it's easy. You don't have to do anything with this plant. Just let it grow. Plant it next to anything red or purple leafed, and you have something that's truly amazing in your garden. Mine is next to purple salvia, sedum, and hydrangea. And I have to tell you that it was the first thing I was looking for this spring as the plants were starting to come up. And I don't consider myself to be that much of a garden watcher, but Hakanakloa has my full attention. The best part of Hakanakloa All Gold is the spectacular pop of color that it adds. Now, Hakanakloa prefers part shade. And up here at the cabin, it's in a garden that faces northeast. So it's in the shade for much of the day, and then around supper time, it has its time in the sun. But you know what? That part shade is really no problem, since I like to say that Hakanakloa brings plenty of lightness and brightness all on its own. So full circle moment here. Plant Hakanakloa All Gold in your garden, and your dog days will be lighter and brighter, or at the very least, you'll smile from your hammock as you admire your beautiful all gold Hakanakloa. All right, that's it for today's gardening news. Now, if you'd like to check out my curated news articles or my original blog posts for yourself, you're in luck, because I share all of it with the listener community in the free Facebook group for the show. It's called the Daily Gardener Community. So there's no need for you to take notes or track down links. The next time you're on Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community and request to join. Then you can share all of these posts with your friends and family, your garden buddies. And don't forget that I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today in 1796, the landscape architect Gilbert Laing Meason was born. Gilbert was a friend of Sir Walter Scott, and he invented the term landscape architecture in his 1828 book, The Landscape Architecture of the Great Painters of Italy. Now, not many copies of his book were printed, but somehow the prolific garden author John Claudius Loudon secured a copy for himself. And he shared that term, landscape architecture, with the American horticulturist Andrew Jackson Downing, who in turn shared it with Frederick Law Olmsted. Now, Olmsted was the actual first professional to describe himself as a landscape architect, and he is today regarded as the founder of landscape architecture. So there you go. It all started with Gilbert Laing Meason. Meason was very balanced in his perspective on architecture. He valued both function and beauty. In terms of his property, Meason was a romantic, and his personal estate was known as Lindertus House. It's no surprise that he surrounded it with ornate gardens. Over time, though, the cost of maintaining the elaborate gardens, in addition to the household management of the estate as a whole, brought Lindertus to total financial ruin. Today, barely a trace of this mansion and garden exists. And when Gilbert died, he had no idea that his notion of landscape architecture would be his legacy. And it was on this day in 1806 that Michael Keynes, a market gardener from Isleworth, exhibited the first large-scale cultivated strawberry at the Royal Horticultural Society. Now, when it comes to strawberries, Michael combined two important variables: flavor and appearance. It's hard to imagine, but large garden strawberries as we know them today didn't exist before the 1800s. In his wonderfully illustrated book, The Complete Strawberry, Stafford Whitaker takes us through the strawberry's development over the past 200 years, sharing how strawberries were harvested from the foot of the Andes and brought to France by a French spy named Amédée Francois Fraser. Fraser's strawberry story is one of triumph. It turns out that Fraser personally cared for 5 little strawberry plants from the Andes during a 6-month journey back home to France, and he shared his own precious water supply with the strawberries to keep them alive. And in a strange coincidence, Fraser's surname is derived from fraise, the French word for strawberry. It turns out that Fraser's ancestor, Julius de Berry, presented the emperor with a gift of strawberries, and in return, he was honored with the name Fraser as his gift. Now, for clarification, the name strawberry does not refer to mulching the berries with straw. Instead, it's from the Old English term straw, which means to spread, referring to the way the runners grow. So if we were naming them today, we would call them spread berries. Fascinating. And back on April 30th, 1859, the Preston Chronicle and Lancashire Advertiser gave a little advice for gardeners who were interested in growing Keynes strawberries. They said, "For garden edgings, nothing is more profitable than parsley or a line of Keynes seedling strawberries." So there you have it. And it was on this day in 1939 that the Asbury Park Press reported that Lambertus Bobbink, one of the country's best-known florists, was honored at the New York Botanical Gardens. In fact, the author Pearl Buck was there to dedicate a rose garden and to unveil a plaque to Bobbink that read, "Lambertus C. Bobbink, a great rosarian whose counsel and generosity helped to make this garden possible for the enjoyment of all." Bobbink immigrated to the United States from Holland in 1896. He purchased a few acres of land in Rutherford, New Jersey. By 1898, Frederick Atkins, an English nurseryman, became Bobbink's partner in the business, and together they formed Bobbink and Atkins, one of the world's largest horticultural organizations. Both Bobbink and Atkins had homes on Herrick Street, which was just around the corner from their business on Patterson Avenue. The two florists accomplished some major milestones together. In 1911, Bobbink and Atkins successfully grew the first budded hybrid tea roses in the United States. And 24 years later, they introduced the azalea Rutherfordiana. Now, this azalea did not memorialize a person, but a place. Bobbink's adopted hometown, Rutherford, New Jersey. In Unearthed Words, today is the birthday of the English poet William Henry Davies. Davies loved the natural world, especially birds and butterflies. George Bernard Shaw was a fan of his work, and he wrote the preface of Davies' autobiography. Here are a few poems by William Henry Davies. This first one's called April's Charms. When I can hear the small woodpeckers ring time on a tree for all the birds that sing, and hear the pleasant cuckoo loud and long, the simple bird that thinks 2 notes a song. And here's Davies' poem called Newcomers. And here are butterflies, poor things, amazed with new created wings. They in the airwaves roll distressed, like ships at sea. And when they rest, they cannot help but open and close their wings, like babies with their toes. And then finally, here's one called All in June. A week ago, I had a fire to warm my feet, my hands, and face. Cold winds that never make a friend crept in and out of every place. Today the fields are rich in grass, and buttercups in thousands grow. I'll show the world where I have been, with gold dust seen on either shoe. Till to my garden back I come, where bumblebees for hours and hours sit on their soft, fat, velvet bums to wriggle out of hollow flowers. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Reason for Flowers by Stephen Buckman. This book came out in 2016, and the subtitle is Their History, Culture, Biology, and How They Change Our Lives. The Reason for Flowers. The author, Amy Stewart, wrote this review. Do flowers need a reason? In The Reason for Flowers, Stephen Buckman reminds us that flowers exist for more than just beauty and fragrance. They are miniature chemical factories, wireless signal stations, the inspiration for artists, and of course, sustenance for the most important creatures living on the planet. In short, flowers run the world. And Stephen Buckman is a gifted storyteller and an inquisitive scientist who is intrigued by the dazzling and intricate world of flowers. And thanks to this delightful new book, you will be too. This book is 252 pages of flower history, science, and culture, and it's all enthusiastically simplified and shared for us to enjoy. For plant geeks, it's utterly fascinating. You can get a copy of The Reason for Flowers by Stephen Buckman and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $4. Great deal. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1993, newspapers reported on the first recipient of the Richard Evans Schultes Award, Calvin R. Sperling. Sperling was a preeminent botanist and plant explorer with the USDA. As for Schultes, he was a Harvard University professor and widely recognized as the father of ethnobotany. Schultes once offered my favorite definition of ethnobotany. You hear that term a lot, but not everyone tells you what it means. Schultes said, "It simply means someone who is investigating plants used by primitive societies in various parts of the world." Schultes praised Sperling's work while he was alive, saying, "Calvin Sperling is one of the foremost ethnobotanists today due to his consistent excellence in field research and to his extensive work to conserve biological diversity and to improve crop plants worldwide." An article about Calvin Sperling in the Star Tribune said, "Sperling traipsed over mountain slopes in the Soviet Union in search of wild apricot trees. He had expected to find about 20 forgotten varieties. Instead, he brought back nearly 50 different specimens." Sperling recalled, "I found some incredible ones with traits we've never known before, like tolerance for frosts and freezing that may actually allow apricots to be grown in areas with harsh winter climates." Great discovery and great work by a great botanist, Calvin R. Sperling. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Wyoming, Minnesota with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, Kiana Rayleigh, Maddie Doyle, Natalie Decker, and Eric Begay. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media. You can follow the show on Instagram, and listeners always have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. All the stories and books that are featured on the show can be found over at thedailygardener.org, thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. Last but not least, you can share your own gardener greetings on the show by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.